And before we know it, we can be completely distracted. We can be completely taken over with worry, anxiety, with annoyance, even anger, or with tremendous desire, wanting something from somebody. And these feelings and emotions can come and kind of hijack us. Feels like we are being hijacked. I am being hijacked. So in meditation, we are learning, we are practicing to understand ourselves better, to make friends with our mind, understand our mind, and see if we can also understand the Buddha's teaching, basic teaching, that the main source of happiness and the main source of problems and suffering is not coming from outside. Primarily, it's coming from within our own minds. Our own minds, which are conditioned, which are engaging in habitual behavior based on our characteristics, based on our sanskars, our tendencies, which have been built up, according to Lord Buddha, over many, many, many lifetimes. It's not something new. So we don't have to learn how to be worried, how to be attached, how to be angry, annoyed. We don't need to learn these things. They come very naturally. So in meditation, we are beginning to understand this process, and we are adopting an environment, a posture, and an attitude that helps us to become more calm, more clear, and also more kind and compassionate. First of all, towards ourselves, and then automatically, somehow, also towards others. I wouldn't say automatically, actually, and some natural warmth can be there, but to develop very deep, all-embracing love and compassion, then, yeah, some work is needed, some effort, some thinking, rational thinking is necessary. But simply by being calm and clear and slowing down and beginning to pay attention to our bodies and minds, some natural kind of warmth and goodwill, some kind of kindness also can emerge. Because, why? Because our true nature, our deepest nature, is something very good, something very, you could say, basic goodness. It is not basic badness, as might be suggested by certain religions or certain interpretation of some religions. We might think we are basically bad, basically sinful, but actually, according to Buddha, basically we are good. Temporarily, we are sick with the unwholesome states of mind, sick with negative emotions, klesh, with the disturbing emotions, anger, attachment is there, jealousy, pride, and of course, basic ignorance. So when we meditate, there is a natural sense of calm and ease which we are generating. And in that situation, with a more relaxed mind, we can really begin to understand and look at ourselves in a more balanced way, in perspective. We do that through taking an object initially, like the breath, which we will do, the breathing, just paying attention to it, not trying to breathe in any special way, but just paying attention to our breath as it enters and leaves our body, right? The sensation of it, the sensation of your breath, you can feel it at your nostrils. This is what we mean when we say we can be aware of the sensation of our breath, this feeling, the sensation at the nostrils as the breath enters and leaves. This becomes something that can help us to focus. And when the thoughts come, as they will, we simply observe and we do not follow them. We do not make a big story, we don't make a kind of hi-hi or tamasha out of it. We simply let go of the thoughts, gently come back to what? Back to the breath, back to the sensation of the breath. And we relax with the out-breath. Since we are not in a hurry, we are not ambitious, we're not trying to gain anything. There's no monetary reward in this. So we can be very relaxed. There's no competition. Not trying to show off. Not trying to really prove anything to anybody right now. Not trying to be good. Not trying to be bad. Nothing. Just relaxed. Simply watching. So this is very relaxing. This is it's like having a real holiday. Meaning real holiday from the disturbing, unhappy, restless, busy mind, which is so tiring, so tiresome. So we will practice this, but before we do that, briefly we remember why. Why are we practicing? This is a very big question. We are only practicing for some peace of mind. Well, that's okay, of course. But in this tradition, we aim to have very deep and extensive kind of intention, motivation for practicing. We practice remembering that, you and me in this room, for example, or the people online, 9 people online, you see, we all want to be happy, right? No, none of us wants to suffer. And that is true for not only the 15 or 20 of us, but it's true for every single being which has a mind, which has consciousness, awareness. Every being wants to, be happy and not suffer. Every living thing needs something to prosper, thrive. In Buddhism, we don't really believe that plants or trees have mind as such or consciousness, but if you don't give water to your house plants for 3-4 days in the hot weather, you can see the result. So they need something, And it is proven also that plants do better when the person taking care of them not only give them water, but also are kind-hearted and give positive energy in that sense to the plants. They do better, usually. So my point is, we all need kindness, proper input. We all want to be happy, not sad, not suffering. So therefore, when we practice together here at Tushita and online, really we have to think about how we can make things happier, better for people who are suffering so much from, as you know, conflicts, wars, personal problems, physical and mental disturbances, So much is making us unhappy. And often physically and in terms of environment, we have everything we need. Everything. Food, shelter, nice environment, no wars, no conflict, no one is trying to bomb us like poor people of Ukraine and all are suffering. No one is doing that to us. But as we know, our mind can create a big mess. Due to the wrong way of thinking, we can make ourselves very unhappy very quickly and make other people very unhappy as well. So we remember this and we aspire, we motivate that we'll practice today together in order to understand ourselves better, make our own minds more calm, more clear, more kind, so that we can be of great benefit, help other people who are having a hard time physically and especially mentally, having a very hard time. There will be many people, for example, suffering right now in Ukraine, but there will be some people suffering more than others because they don't know how to work with their minds at all. Some people will naturally be more calm and clear and kind people, trying to help others. Perhaps there'll be some people who are just worry a lot, are very afraid, always thinking of their own problem. So there'll be many different reactions. It all depends on the state of one's mind, basically. So let's practice in order to be of great all-round benefit. So as I said, let's start with the breath. So we pay attention to the breath entering and leaving our body through the nostrils. We take it easy. We don't try too hard, but also we don't relax so much that we become sleepy or careless. So we need to pay attention. When thoughts come, don't get upset, just leave them. Let them go. Don't get attracted or repelled. Just let go and bring the attention back to the breath. Simply breathing in and out normally. Sensation of breath at the nostrils. Or if that's difficult, you can pay attention to your abdomen rising and falling. And relaxing as you breathe out each time. So you try this for a little while. Be very calm, very clear, keep the body still. Let there be a sense of ease, relaxed way, not tight, but also very attentive. Pay attention. And all of it is within that sense of kindness. Let there be relaxation in the muscles of the face, around the mouth and eyes. Upright posture, shoulders level. Head tilted slightly forwards. Okay. If you need to take a few moments to stretch, just do that. Okay, so what we're looking at is purification. So for those who are not here yesterday, or are beginners, then the example we've been using is that, if you want to invite somebody to your house, or even if you don't, even if you just want to have a decent living space, then you cannot allow too much dirt and garbage to accumulate in your house. You have to keep it clean, right? Most of the people I know, living in, I suppose, quite good colonies and so forth, they keep their houses so clean. I'm sometimes amazed. I could live in some of their toilets. They're so clean and spacious. So people keep their houses very clean, generally. And they even we employ people to clean, right? A lot of my annual monthly budget goes into a cook and a cleaner at home. And when the phenyl or the Lysol runs out, then I buy more so that the house can be not only kept clean but smell nice. How about that? You want your floors, you want your bathroom to smell nice. Good, it's fine. So we spend a lot of time, money, and not only that, something I found quite funny, but my relations didn't find it funny. You even adjust your own lifestyle to make sure you are at home when the cleaner is due to come. नहीं, मैं बाहर नहीं जा सकता क्योंकि मेड को आना है, सफाई होना है, झाड़ू पोंछा होना है, मैं घर से नहीं निकल सकता हूँ अभी. ठीक है? Good, very good. As we do say, cleanliness is next to godliness. And there is something in that, of course. So we need to apply this principle also to the most important factor in life, which is not our houses, actually, although they are important. But the most important thing is our own mind, our own body and mind, actually. Houses may change, houses may crumble, houses may be whatever, but this body and mind is what we have right now, till we die. And actually the mind is something, consciousness, awareness is something we have forever. I mean that, forever. And hopefully we don't have the same kind of consciousness that we're having now, which is confused, upset, angry, and so forth. Hopefully we'll have a very refined and pure, liberated consciousness even, the consciousness of a Buddha. So, which is our potential, is a possibility, real possibility for us. So, but for that we need to clean up the junk, all of the garbage, if you like, that is there right now, temporarily, swirling around in our awareness. It's not just the question of having a constant sort of traffic jam of thoughts and feelings and emotions and memories and images, plans, worries, fears, but we also have very powerful emotions of anger, jealousy, pride, very mind of wanting something so much, been craving for things, for people, for experiences. So powerful, So it doesn't leave us in any kind of really peace. It doesn't leave us with a peaceful, spacious mind. And often these emotions and feelings seem so strong, so real, that we don't have any time or mental space to really care or think about other people properly. And this is a big tragedy, right? Because we're living with other people, we depend on other people, and we forget this, of course. We forget that when we were very young, we were just like a kaka pee machine, and the mother usually had to take care of us, prevent us from all kinds of dangers, falling into all kinds of dangers. That went on for years, not just a few minutes or hours. Went on for years that the mother or father or someone had to take care of us because we were helpless and we needed protection all the time. Not just protection, but also kindness, love, physical affection, and so forth. So, we have depended on others actually before we were born. When we were in the womb, we depended on the attention, the kindness, the consideration of the parents, especially the mother, obviously. But when we are in our normal sort of self-centered state, it's easy for us to forget that other people, in some sense, you could say, are really more important than we are. Because just in terms of the mathematics of it, I'm one person, How could I possibly be more important than everybody else? It's just ridiculous to think that way. But that's how we think sometimes. So the reason we think that way, that we are most important, is because we have not trained the mind. We have not cleared the mind of the pollution, you could say, of this selfishness, of the disturbing emotions, which have been with us, as I said, for a very long time. We are used to them. However, the good news is, as we mentioned so many times, is that these negative emotions are temporary. Yeah, they are powerful, yes, but they are temporary. They are not the actual deep nature of the mind. If they were, then of course nothing to be done. We couldn't change anything. We just have to accept we are like that only. But we're not like that only. We are not basically angry, unhappy, confused beings. Potentially, we are Buddha. Yeah, potentially we are Buddha, fully awake people. That's the nature of our mind. It's not some magic, or I'm not saying this because we are, Indian people with Indian genetics. This is true of everybody. Everybody has the Buddha nature, meaning we all have the potential to be totally calm, clear, kind, fully awake, and totally blissfully able to care for others. This is our potential. So, it's not just one person who became Buddha and that's it. There are billions of Buddhas. And every one of us can become a Buddha. It's just a question of training. And, of course, wanting to become a Buddha. But also wanting in the right way, relaxed, skillful way. Okay, so purification is necessary because the mind is full of dirt. Just like cleaning the house is necessary, because otherwise you yourselves feel, uncomfortable, and then you feel very ashamed if guests or your friends or your in-laws or whatever come to visit you and your house is dirty. You feel kind of, or you haven't done your job, then your partner may get very annoyed with you that, how come, सफाई नहीं कराए, कितनी बुरी बात है, कितना बुरा लग रहा होगा लोगों को. But dust is flying off the sofa as you sit down, and you can make patterns on the table because there's so much dust. So ये सब नहीं होना चाहिए ना, especially if you're inviting people. Okay, so you get the idea. And what we also mentioned is that one very, very famous Lama connected with our tradition, Lama Tsongkhapa, he had very, very high spiritual attainments. And you could say he would have kind of inner dialogues or visions with the Buddha of wisdom is specifically, and the Buddha of wisdom in a vision told him that if you want to properly understand the teachings and if you want to bring them into your life, help them transform your life, then you have to do three things. You have to purify your mind, you have to accumulate positive energy, and you have to generate supreme kind of devotion towards the teacher, towards the Guru. Guru and the Ishta Devta, one's own particular meditation practice, deity, one's own particular Buddha one is focusing on. So, in a sense, what comes first is purification, simply because we need some space in the mind to develop the good qualities, the accumulation. So we need purification, accumulation, and devotion. So purification, in one way, you could say, has to come first a little bit. You have to clean up a little bit, right? Before you can invite your guests and put nice things in the room. First of all, you have to clean the room a little bit, right? Then there's space for the good things you want to, bring in that will make others happy. Okay, so how do we, and therefore, from a Buddhist perspective, this practice of purification, which we're going to talk about, is much more important than anything else. It's much more important than, for example, having a cure for cancer or AIDS. We might think, yeah, it's very good that the people, medical companies, governments are spending millions of dollars on medical research so we can find cures for these things. But actually, from a Buddhist perspective, there will never be an end to cancer, AIDS, disease, depression, all these things. There'll never be an end until we purify our minds, because that's the source, that's the origin of all these problems, all disease, all physical disease, and all mental disease, and all negative environmental effects, from earthquakes to war to everything. They all actually deeply originate in consciousness and collective consciousness as well. This may seem very unusual thing to say. War, perhaps we can understand how that comes from, people's minds, people having certain negative emotions, fears, making certain decisions. That all comes from the mind, right? We have to accept that. It doesn't drop out of the sky. The war in Ukraine didn't just drop out of the sky. And it wasn't just because of one person. There were many, many factors, thousands of factors. So they all come together, but they all come together with mainly due to the awareness, the consciousness, the mind of many beings. And of course, certain beings' minds, most important, the leaders and so forth, their minds, their attitude, their fears, their anger, whatever. Yeah. So this is what we have to understand. We might think, well, no, maybe, if the government spent more money on good housing, good education, then things would be okay. Or if the UN, United Nations, worked harder, then things would be okay. internationally and so forth. But it's not like that. The mind has to change. People's minds have to change. They will only change when they have begun to be really purified, you know. So that's the most important thing to do from a Buddhist perspective, because we've been suffering one way or another since beginningless time. That's another thing. We just can't remember. We can't remember being born. Most of us can't remember being in the womb. And we certainly can't remember our past life, the immediate past life, and of course, the ones before that. So then we think, well, maybe not, you know. But from the Buddha's point of view, it's very clear. Countless beginningless past lives, consciousness will never come to an end. So then it's in our hand what kind of awareness, what kind of consciousness we are experiencing in the future. Do we want happiness or do we want suffering? And we spoke about suffering yesterday. What we mean by that word. It's not just about physical pain or obvious mental discomfort. It's all kinds of things. From the minor things like, you know, the tea was at one point hot, now it's cold, not so enjoyable. That is also a kind of unsatisfactoriness, a kind of suffering, you know, for the ordinary mind, not for the Buddha's mind. You can give a fully awakened person hot tea, cold tea, stale tea, it won't make any difference to them because their mind is totally pure. But for someone like me, when the tea gets cold, then it's a little unsatisfactory. You know? So that's just one example of unsatisfactoriness. It's also unsatisfactory that one is getting old and one is can get sick and one will die. That is also very unsatisfactory in one way for the ordinary mind. Again, ordinary mind, I mean, mind which is not yet purified, not yet fully awakened, not yet fully wise and compassionate. So for us, living is a problem. Living is dukkha. The word Buddha used is dukkha. Unsatisfactory. There are so many problems. Never any lasting satisfaction. This is the thing. Uncertainty. Always uncertainty. We never know really what is going to happen next. You know? Who will live? Who will die? Will I get what I want? You know, we don't know. So if we're honest with ourselves, and we need to be honest, the Buddha says we have to accept that wherever we look in the ordinary world, in a sense, there's nowhere we can find where we will find perfect happiness in the ordinary way of looking for things. There's no perfect happiness in samsara. Samsara, we say in English. In Hindi, we say sansar. Na? Sansar mein koi asli khushi nahi milega. Dukh hai. Unsatisfactory. Because sansar is not a place. We can't say Delhi is sansar. Some other place is not. No, sansar is state of mind, right? If state of mind is unawake, not yet Buddha, then nowhere is perfect. If our mind is already Buddha, in a state of Buddhahood, then on one level, everything for us will be totally perfect, totally pure. Okay, so we need purification much more than we need money or beautiful houses or beautiful friends or health or whatever. The main thing is to purify the mind. Why? Because if we don't, this is the thing, okay? Then this is really the thing we need to be aware of. We don't purify our mind, which means, of course, uprooting, purifying the seeds of negative actions. If we don't purify the mind and stop the cause of negative karma, if we don't stop negative karma and keep on creating unwholesome actions with our body, our speech, and mentally, then we'll keep on getting suffering results. Because karma is definite, karma expands, and we cannot experience the result if we don't create the cause. And if we do create causes, we get the result. And there's also the sense that there are also environmental effects of our actions. So let me give an example of, say, one negative karma. And remember, it's in the context of purifying all these things. If we don't purify, for example, the karma we have created, even if we can't remember, we have killed, Most of us will have killed at least some small insect or animal in this life. Some of us may have done even more than that. Some may have deliberately gone on, hunting expeditions or deliberately killed birds. And many of us deliberately kill mosquitoes, cockroaches, flies on a regular basis. So if that is not purified, here's what the Buddha says, what the teachings say about the kind of results that we can expect from the karma of killing. There are four main kind of results that come. The first is called the fully ripened effect, fully ripened result, which means that if the karma is strong enough, then it has actually the power to influence the next kind of rebirth. So if we have strong karma of killing, which we haven't purified, then it can throw us into a very suffering realm, animal or worse. And of course, karma being the karma of killing, mainly being associated with anger, it has the power to throw us into the main kind of result of strong anger, which is hell, hellish state of mind, hellish kind of suffering. That's the first effect that is possible. Let's say we have a human rebirth, but we have also killed in the past. So there will be some lesser effects of killing, you could say. We have not been reborn in a very suffering realm. We have been born human due to good causes. We are human because we also created good karma. But we're talking now of karma of killing, specifically, to give an example. So even if we're born as a human, because of previously accumulated karma of killing, it is possible to experience three other kinds of results. One of them is easy, relatively easy to understand. If we have killed in the past, then we have the habit. The habit carries on from life to life. It's easier to kill. And we find this. It's people who have no problem killing small animals, insects, no problem. They don't think twice. Or they can easily go on a fishing expedition and catch a lot of fish and think nothing of it. They'll be excited by it. They'll take photographs of themselves with holding a big fish. Everyone's very proud of them. I mean, they just don't realize it's kind of killing, taking the life of another being that doesn't want to die, wants to be happy, doesn't want to suffer. So for some people, killing is easy. For some people, it's very difficult. Actually, they can't. I remember as a young student at school in England, sitting in the canteen, and I was very stupid sometimes, and I was trying to kill a fly. And I think I succeeded that time. I was very proud of the fact that my hand moved so fast and it could kill a fly. There was this friend sitting there. He was so upset. He was so upset. I said, how can you kill this fly? He was so upset. So you see, for some people, killing is not easy. They don't want to kill even a fly. Why? Buddha will say karma. Some have created the cause. Some are used to killing. They have the habit of killing from past lives. Other people don't. Other people have the opposite, actually. They want to preserve life. They want to save life. That's a habit from the past. So, okay, the one result then is you have the habit of killing. It's easy. So again, that creates its own repercussions. More and more karma of killing, more and more karma of killing, again and again. And then we'll talk about something else soon, which makes it worse. And then the other effect is that if you kill, if we have the karma of killing, we experience something similar ourselves. So this can work in different ways. We get harmed by others, we get killed by others, we have a short life. People we love very much die young or quickly. In other words, we suffer similar things we made other people suffer by killing them. So we have sickness, short life, harm from others, and so forth. Then the last result, the third result of the three that can occur, even if we have a human life, which is basically pretty good. Third result is called the environmental effect. So as you can imagine, the environmental effect that we create by killing is that at some point in our life, or maybe for some people, a long time in their life, they have very bad environment, which is either dangerous or where there's not enough food or water, or where there are many disturbances connected with your environment. Or you live in a city where there are many good places, many good suburbs where there isn't any real problem and there's good security and so forth. But you live in an area where there's a lot of danger, robbery, danger, murder, whatever. You can't go out at night, easily because there is harm. There is big potential for harm. So this is environmental effect. So you can have 22 million people or whatever living in Delhi. Of course, not all of them. We all have the environmental karma of living in Delhi in general in some way. But some people live in terrible places. You wouldn't want to go there for 1 minute, and some of us live in very beautiful places. I mean, like this place. It's amazing. Really amazing compared to most places in Delhi. So environmental effect is also there. So you have the fully ripened effect can throw you into a particular rebirth. So just for example, take the example of the opposite of killing, helping people stay alive, protecting people from death, preserving life. What the Tibetans do a lot is saving the life of animals that are about to be killed, goats or chickens and so forth. So the result of preserving life is one, you tends to create the cause for a more human life. You have a human life. Then the three other effects, you have the habit of, preserving life. You don't want to kill, you want to preserve life. Then you yourself have, generally speaking, it results in good health, longer life, because you have preserved life, you have longer life, healthier life. People around you also not so prone to die early or young or whatever, or in accidents. You've created that kind of cause. And the last one, environmentally, good environment in general. Doesn't mean that all your life you'll have a good environment, because you've created many karmas. But in general, we will have, positive environment. And I'm sure someone is asking a question now about meat eating or something. Yeah. What about Buddhists who eat non-veg food? Yeah, not so great, not so good. And it's very prevalent. Chinese Buddhists tend to be more vegetarian. Thai Buddhists, Sri Lankan Buddhists, Burmese Buddhists, they like their fish very much, it seems. I've been to events where the monks are being fed, Yeah, they like their non-veg. And that is sad, but it's true. So that's not so great. But of course, the Buddha in his time, he allowed his monks to eat meat, so long as they hadn't killed the animal themselves, and so long as the animal had not been killed specifically for them, and so forth. But of course, it's not ideal. And especially now, I think we have to be very careful in our world to be more vegetarian, because for many, many reasons, environmental as well as ethical. But anyway, So the point I'm making, the bigger point, is that if we don't purify our minds and don't purify things like the karma of killing, then the results are actually terrifying. And karma expands, they say. So it's like you have some piece of garlic or onion, and you put it in the fridge and you forget to keep it in a container. So then the next day, the smell is terrible. It's kind of, and then you leave it a few days, the smell gets even worse. So it's a bit like that. Karma, negative karma, unpurified, the result grows, just like a seed grows into a big plant, huge plant. If we didn't understand, how things work, we'd be very amazed. We wouldn't believe it. If someone came to us with a small seed of a peepal tree, the Bodhi tree, they said, this can grow into this huge tree, kind of tree that Buddha sat under. We'd say it's not possible if we didn't understand how seeds work. But yeah, you put that seed in the ground, it's unbelievable. In a sense, the result of a tiny seed, huge tree with billions of seeds over its lifetime. So like that, positive karma also grows, of course. If you don't regret the good things you've done, then the positive karma also grows into giving a very big, huge, wonderful result. But negative karma also grows, you see. If we don't purify, then if we haven't purified karma of killing in general through our purification practice, then the results can be many, many, many lifetimes of suffering. And many, many lifetimes of not having the relative happiness of a human life. Many, many lifetimes. Uncountable. Then there's karma of stealing. Well, again, the 4 results. Karma of stealing leads to a kind of a life in general where we don't have enough. We lack resources. That's the basic effect of karma of stealing. And of course, we have the habit of stealing, which is terrible. And we keep on stealing in one way or another. And then we have things stolen from us. We have many negative things happen to us in that sense. And then the environment is one in which we don't have enough. It's an environment where crops fail, where we don't have enough to eat, where we need to maybe beg to stay alive, whatever. Not a good environment. So all of these, and then, okay, these are just some of the physical actions. Of course, there's also karma of misusing our sexuality. That would result in, again, the habit of doing that. Then also it would result in more animal rebirth. In terms of the major result, it could result in animal rebirth. And then the habit of, again, misusing the sexual energy in many ways. And then it would also mean the other effect is that people around us are not faithful to us. People around us are very argumentative, quarrelsome. We have problems with the people we work with. That is said to be a result of sexual misconduct. And then, of course, the environment, they say, we live in as a result of that is a very dirty, disgusting kind of environment with a lot of bad smells and so forth. So that's the result of sexual misconduct. And when we come to the speech, karma, lying, harsh speech, divisive speech, and idle gossip, all of those have 4 results also. But just to take the result in the human realm, and I hope you're getting the idea of how this works, the result of, say, lying is that you have the habit of lying, which is not so great, is it? And then the other kind of result is you experience the same kind of effect yourself. People lie to you, or you tell the truth on many occasions, but people doubt your words. They don't really believe you. You can have that experience. You're saying something that's true, but people don't believe you. If that's happening a lot, then you can be sure that's the result of the karma of lying in the past. Like the story, the person who cried wolf, yeah. He cried, wolf, wolf has come, but there was no wolf. He was just lying, you know. So when the wolf really did come and he cried wolf, people didn't believe him. And the wolf harmed him or killed the sheep or whatever. So karma of lying is people won't believe us. And then environmentally also, it means we could live in a place or environment where people are very deceptive. People deceive us, people cheat us, etc. Harsh speech, again, very dangerous one. Harsh speech, imagine, you have some people have the habit, very harsh language, very nasty, harsh language of all kinds, you know. So the habit, when you also live in an environment with a lot of that kind of speech coming at you, anger and harshness coming at you, and the environment also, kind of harsh environment, not a nice environment, maybe a noisy environment, argumentative environment. So all these karmas have their results. So if we're not purifying, you see, we're going to experience all these results. You can be sure. It's just scientific. You have a seed, you put in the ground, you give it water, moisture, heat, it will grow. If the seed is viable seed, it will grow. You create the cause, we create the cause. If you don't purify negative causes, then you'll get the result. If you don't destroy the seed, you keep on giving it what it needs to grow, it will grow. Of course, you want the nice plants, the flowers and the fruit trees to grow, so that's good. You encourage them, you rejoice in that, and then that grows. The positive energy grows. If we rejoice in our good actions, that's a wonderful thing to do, as you know. But not to purify the negativity, then we're just creating more and more and more hellish experience for the future. Why? Because even though we can't remember doing bad things, we have done everything in past lives, everything. In this life, we may have been a very good, kind person, basically, which is great. But we don't know what we did in the past. And our teachers encourage us to think that we've done everything. And that makes sense. We haven't just had hundreds of previous lives, or thousands, or billions. We have had countless previous lifetimes. Beginningless. So, beginningless unwholesomeness. Good news is that it's all in the mind. It's mental, so it can be destroyed. It can be deactivated with the right opponents. Just like an incredible amount of dirt in your house. Of course, sometimes you have to call in the experts and they will come in and clean your house for you. You know, so sometimes we need very drastic methods, but it can be cleaned. So the mind, because as we said, it's essentially pure. The dirt is temporary. This karma and afflictive emotions are temporary, potentially temporary. So we can diffuse them. We can get rid of them. We can cleanse the mind, if you like, to use ordinary language. That's the good news. But the other news is that it doesn't just happen because we want it to. We have to engage in all of this. There's a lot of material in the text that we were looking at on reincarnation and so forth, and that's worth looking at, but it'll take us some time to go through this, but I could go through some of it because it's very good. Let me read some of the material from Venerable Robina Courtin's text that we were looking at, which was called "There's no karma that cannot be purified." In other words, every karma can be purified. Thank goodness. Huh? Otherwise, we're in trouble. Otherwise, we're in endless trouble. So, the mind, there's continuity of mind. Where do I come from? You see, because if there's no previous life, then it doesn't matter. We can just remember some negative things we've done in this life and purify it very easily. But the point is beginningless mind. So how do we begin to cope with this teaching of Buddha that we have a beginningless mind? Because we may say, well, I don't believe it. No way. I come from my father and mother, from the sperm and the egg. That's where I come from. That's where my mind comes from. And most modern science kind of thinks that way. They don't question. So according to Buddha, I'm just going to read now from Robina's text because it's very good. According to Buddha, we're not created by anyone, either a superior being or our parents. Instead, we're the product of our own past. In a simple sense, you could say you come from previous moments of yourself. Think of your mind as a river of mental moments. Your thoughts and feelings of now, in the simplest linear sense of cause and effect, your thoughts and feelings of now come from the previous moment of your thoughts and feelings. And your thoughts and feelings of the previous moment come from, guess what? The previous moment of your thoughts and feelings. You track it back to 10 years, 20 years ago, back into your mother's womb. Well, maybe I began a month before conception. Well, no. If my mind existed then, it must have come from a previous moment of my mind. Then clearly you get back to the first moment of conception, when we all assume we began. If you're Christian, God put a soul there in the egg and sperm. And if you're a materialist, you are only the egg and sperm. Well, the Buddha has this third option. The first second of conception in our mother's womb is the entry of our own consciousness into the egg and sperm from the previous life. So you can track your consciousness right in this continuity of mental moments, going right back to that first moment of conception. Well, I must have begun then, you might think. Well, yes, relatively speaking, this package called Robina began then. But where did the body come from? Mommy and daddy. Where did your mind come from? Previous moments of itself. Previous moments of itself. So your mind is its own continuity of mental moments. It's a very simple concept, actually. Not difficult for us to intellectualize, to theorize about. Your mind is its own continuity. And obviously, to assume this, you have to assume it's not physical. Because clearly, if you think your mind is your brain, then you did come from your parents, which is the materialist view, that they made you, And so the experiential implication of this is that your mind is yours. And that means the contents of it are yours. And so what are the contents of your mind? All the love and the kindness and compassion and wisdom and contentment and anger and jealousy, fear, paranoia, rage, all of this. This is the contents of your mind. So all of these being contents of your mind, they too come from previous moments of that particular quality in your mind. So this is a simple idea that implies reincarnation, isn't it? It's a simple concept, not a difficult concept intellectually, but we're so familiar, you see, with the view that I come from my mother and father, and my anger comes from my mother and father, and my jealousy and my depression and all the rest come from the DNA and the egg and the sperm, and all the rest, They play a role. There's no argument. They do play a role, but they're not the main thing. For the Buddha, the main things are your mind, your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, your unconscious, your tendencies, your feelings, all of this. This is yours. This is yours. We come into this life already fully programmed with all of our tendencies, sanskars in Sanskrit, right? With all of our characteristics. It's a big surprise to us. I mean, we accept we come fully programmed, but we think the programming comes from our mother and father. It doesn't, the Buddha says. Tendencies in the mind are mental, and mind is not physical, and it comes from previous moments of itself, not from the external condition, which is called the brain. One can see indicators in the brain of certain things, no argument with that. So this fundamental point of Buddhism is that your mind is yours, and whatever is in it is simply from you having put it there in the past. Hardly surprising concept. It's cause and effect. And karma is intention. That's the essential meaning. Karma is a Sanskrit word, just means action, really simply, which implies there's a reaction, action, reaction in this meaning, cause and effect, seed and fruit, like that. It's also more fundamentally translated as intention, will, volition. I mean, just an example of that. If you lie in the ordinary sense, that's a negative karma. But if you lie, for example, to save somebody's life, there's, of course, one could argue about this, but say there's a hunter who's very well fed. He doesn't really need to kill this particular deer that he's chasing. And he asks, and you see the deer escaping, and the hunter asks you, which way did the deer go? Then you say, I don't know, or you give him the wrong direction. That is lying. But the intention could be very compassionate, loving, and also wanting to save the hunter from the negative karma of killing, as well as saving the deer. So that wouldn't count as a negative karma of lying. It depends on the intention. The intention has to be the ordinary, deluded wish to deceive another with the wrong kind of motivation, to harm or to protect your own reputation, or simply because you have the habit of lying. So there has to be some delusion involved, negative afflictive emotion involved for it to be negative karma. So that's what we mean by intention. Mothers kind of pretend to be angry, look angry, say angry words to a child that is misbehaving with the most loving of intentions, wishing to protect the child from harm, for example. So that's not negative karma of harsh speech, because the intention is beneficial, is love and compassion. So like that. Anyway, every microsecond of everything we say, everything we think and feel, everything we do and say with our body and speech on the basis of what's in our mind is a karma, an intentional action that necessarily will leave an imprint or a tendency or a seed in your consciousness, and it will ripen in the future in that consciousness as your experiences. What goes on in our minds, in other words, is the main cause of our future experiences. This is what Buddha says. It's a simple concept. It's not really a very difficult idea. It's just a question of being able to say it and get our heads around it, and go beyond our usual materialist view of things, that everything has to be physical. It isn't complicated. We think it's complicated, but it's just because we haven't got the right words for it. It's not a complicated concept at all. Of course, it's not evident to us, so we take it as our working hypothesis. Buddha's saying, basically, what is he saying? We are the creators of ourselves. It's a very simple point, and actually a very radical point, very liberating point. It means ultimately, we're not in the hands of God or Buddha or anyone else. We create our reality. We create our future. Whatever is in your mind is there because you put it there, not because mommy and daddy did something to you. This flies in the face of the assumption that we all have, that's the basis of our lives, and is, as Buddha would say, a misconception. That, I'm angry because my father was angry. I'm jealous because my mother was jealous. I'm depressed because I have certain hormones. We always put some kind of external material reason to it, which sort of for us is a way of saying, isn't it? It's not my fault. It's the environment, or it's the government, or it's the weather, or it's the mummy, or it's the daddy, or what they did to me when I was young. Of course, all these things are triggers. All these things have their effect, but what's the deep cause? In fact, why am I born to such a mommy and daddy? If I'm born to parents who didn't take care of me very well, what's the cause of that? Why wasn't I born like my friend to parents who are much more loving? Karma. I created the cause to be born to whoever I'm born to. Not just total chance, So we have this dualistic view. We assume we're made by mother and father. We assume the anger and the jealousy and the depression are either there because of the genes or the DNA, or they're there because I've got a mean boyfriend, or because I had a lousy mother, or a horrible husband, or a bad kid, or a horrible boss. That's the typical way we talk. And this is, in fact, the view of the materialist world. This is the philosophy of the materialist world that is backed up by the view that your mother and father made you, that you're only physical. So the point she's making, very important point, we have to understand how we have to begin to understand our mind, and that it's not just something physical. It is, of course, deeply connected with the brain, right? Obvious, we'd be foolish to say that we could do without half of our brain. Most of us couldn't. The mind is working through the brain. But you see, if the brain were everything, or the main thing, then we wouldn't be able to explain certain things, such as, for example, the one that is being researched a lot now, how certain practitioners can be clinically dead, totally clinically dead from the modern medical point of view, clinically dead, but still in a state of meditation. Body not deteriorating, posture not deteriorating, no smell coming from the body, rigor mortis not happening, days or weeks even after death, still in a state of meditation. So what is meditating? The brain's not meditating, the brain is dead. The heart has stopped long ago. So what's meditating? So Buddhist perspective, the very subtle mind that is not connected with the brain, which is everlasting and beginningless, that is meditating. And it can go on for weeks in the case of certain lamas. And then when their meditation is finished, then the body can begin to deteriorate. And in some cases, even then, not. Some lamas, some practitioners have the power to kind of have their body stay not deteriorate. Anyway, point is, mind is not the brain. It's connected with the brain, yes, but it is not the brain. Doesn't mean it's the brain just because it's connected. Water goes through pipes, right? It doesn't mean pipe is the water, for example. But yeah, without pipes, you're in trouble in your house. Okay, so then she speaks about how karma ripens. We mentioned that. Yeah, fascinating text based on the Buddhist text, this Robina. So we'll need to look at this. Oh dear, excuse me. We're on page 14, 15. Some very interesting material here, especially for people who haven't read this kind of thing before. Very unusual thing. So I think all of you who are on our WhatsApp group, you have this text. So look at it. Look at what she speaks about, how karma, 4 ways that karma ripens, fully ripened result, etc. And Lama Zopa Rinpoche's teachings on this. Yeah, there's some very interesting things on page 16. Take a look at all of this. And it may blow your mind, and that's good. Our minds, our conditioned minds need to be blown, you could say. Just like a room which hasn't been aired for a long time, you need to open the windows, turn on the fan, and allow air to blow through it. We need our minds to be blown sometimes by things that stretch our awareness, which are things that were not taught to us at school or university or thereafter. So it can be very good. It doesn't mean we have to believe it, right? We have to think about it. We have to work with it, as the Buddha said. Don't believe something just because I'm teaching it, but test it like a goldsmith tests gold through burning, cutting, rubbing, and so forth. But of course, we have to do that properly. We can't just say, well, I thought about it for a day or two and it's nonsense. That's not good enough. We have to go through it more deeply, the reasonings. But there are some very powerful ones which you could think about, which have even been documented, you see, by people who would otherwise not believe. Stories of young children who remember very clearly where they came from, how they died, what their name was in a previous life. And this has been corroborated because they took researchers to where they lived, even met their former parents in some cases. And yeah, they said, yes, the person did die like this or whatever. So we can't just say, this is just some kind of mistake or weird. This has happened a lot. And then there's, of course, Buddha himself, who, if one has any kind of faith in him, maybe one would believe what he's saying. But he said he remembered he could see countless of his previous lives when he became a Buddha. And there are many other things, like people being able to read your mind very clearly. If you have experience of people being able to do that, then one begins to think, well, mind is something interesting. Can't just be something physical. It's got to be something more or something else. It's got to be non-physical. So if it's non-physical, then many possibilities open up, right? If it's just physical, then of course, yeah, it's just mother, father, genes, sperm and egg, the result of that. Something to think about. And if you have brothers or sisters, and if you have a very different mind from them, you can ask why. Same mother, same father, maybe same food, same house, maybe the same school even, same teachers. Why are you so different mentally from your mother, from your brother or sister, whatever? Why? Drastically different in some cases. This is something to think about. And if we think about it a lot, then purification makes sense, more sense. Otherwise, it doesn't make much sense. Then it's just a question of, yeah, still purification necessary, but it's only one lifetime's garbage to clean up. It's not much necessarily compared to countless beginningless lifetimes garbage. Of course, the good news is that even one or two moments of pure regret, strong regret and purification can destroy unbelievable eons of negative karma. In the same way that one spark of fire could destroy a whole, a mountain of dry hay, would be burnt just with one match, Similar kind of idea. So we shouldn't be depressed and think, well, beginningless lifetime karma is going to take beginningless lifetimes to purify. It's not like that. It can be done very efficiently, very effectively, even within one life. But that's why the emphasis in the tradition is doing 100,000 of this, 100,000 of that. It's to make it more powerful because there is a lot to be purified. So here, the practice that's being taught is the 100-syllable mantra Vajrasattva, which is repeated 100,000 times traditionally. And that can take, as I said, I think yesterday, 2 months, 3 months maximum. It can take in a retreat situation. Sometimes the Lama says to a student who's very busy, okay, you try and do 200 or 300 mantras a day or whatever. And then over however many years, you will have completed 100,000. Of course, it's just not just the number. It's the quality of what we do, right? The intention, the motivation, the regret we mentioned, taking refuge, generating compassion, and the actual practice being done properly with awareness and attention, and not allowing the mind to wander, and then resolving at the end to as much as possible refrain from the particular negative karmas, especially the ones we know about or can remember from this life. So those 4 opponent powers are very necessary. And then we can purify very quickly mountains, if you like, of negative karma. So you could say, yeah, the disease is very bad, but the medication is extraordinary. The medicine is amazing. It works. The proof is that countless beings have become enlightened, and they couldn't have become enlightened if they hadn't purified their garbage, the garbage in their mind. And they did. So these techniques, they work. They work according to the people who are practicing them very, very powerfully. Okay, we could have some discussion. I just wonder if someone could just do something for me. Oh, hold on. Sorry, a particular nun was supposed to arrive today. I'm just checking to come here. If you don't mind, I'll just listen to a 14-second message.
He just reached, and now I am in the taxi to come. Then okay, then I come to Tushita, and yes, all is fine as you said. Okay, see you soon.
Okay, could someone check? Would you mind checking if she's come upstairs and tell her that I'll be with her in 10 minutes, 15? Thanks a lot. If she needs, you can show her the kettle or whatever. Thank you. What's the name? Annie Paldron. She'll be upstairs. She's a French nun. Can't miss her, I guess, if she's there. Thank you. Okay, any feedback on what we looked at today? Let me allow you to unmute yourselves. Yeah. Sir. Is that Mr. Chaudhary wanted to say something?
Thank you. When we believe that life persisted before birth, and before that also, it solves many problems. In fact, it answers many things. The reason being, the incident or event in the life is based on cause effect.
Right.
There is a cause, there is an effect, and effect, then there is a cause. That cause, collection of causes further becomes the causes new effect. It carries on, and entire life we can consider as the chain of cause effects.
Right. Right.
But the first cause, from where the first cause came, from where the first thought or first
cause. There's no first cause.
So
no first
it indicates the continuity of the life.
Right.
It is very convincing. Yes. Because I'm relating the reasoning in the computer science. I'm professor of computer science. So okay. You are there, take some basic logic, and from the logic you derive new logic, and there is a reasoning, and finally you draw to the conclusion. Mm-hmm. That is how computation works. But there you have to assume something in the beginning. But in human, you cannot assume the beginning as if there is a lot of information stored in the newly created brain at the time of conception. So theory gives very convincing idea there is a continuity of life. In additionally, I would say, if we consider the creation of a universe, because all the stars are running away from the center, and those which are far off, they are at the higher and higher speed. Very close to the speed of light, those stars which are at the outermost periphery of the universe, non-universe. Now, from that, if you go back to the previous instant, ultimately you will find that the universe was a point. And Stephen Hawking mentioned that the beginning, at time of Big Bang, the universe was size of a proton with the infinite density. But
yeah, very interesting. Very close to the Buddhist understanding. Actually,
information is not lost in that process. Information, he said, before that, whatever information was there, information carries forward. Even the Stephen Hawking mentioned that.
Okay, good. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me time. Thank you very much.
Yeah, the Kal Chakra Tantra also mentions this, but of course, we don't just speak of one Big Bang in Buddhism, infinite Big Bangs, plenty of them, you know? No beginning to Big Bangs. So yeah, that is where we would differ from modern science, which speaks of a Big Bang, however many billion of years ago, 13 point something billion years ago. Anyway, whatever. Yeah, thank you. Now there's a question of what you do if you are a publicist or a lawyer. Someone asks, and your profession involves lying. Yeah, then you're in trouble. Then you have to choose a new profession, or see if you can be a more ethical lawyer. I don't know. Of course, we have all these jokes, you know, terrible jokes, like, you know, how do you know a lawyer is lying? You know, the answer, his lips are moving. All these terrible jokes we have about lawyers, but it can't be true, can it? Do you have to lie to be a lawyer? I don't know. I don't think you would have to lie, unless you were a criminal lawyer who specialized in defending murderers, maybe, or something like that. Then, of course, you might have to lie quite a bit. But I don't know enough about law. But yes, I would say this comes under the heading wrong livelihood in that case. So if you are lying just to protect your client who has done something wrong, then it's negative lying. If you are lying in the sense of the person saving the deer from the hunter, that's a totally different category of lying. But if your lying is something negative, then it's called wrong livelihood. Then your lawyer livelihood or your publicist livelihood is a wrong livelihood. And the Buddha would say, yeah, we need right livelihood, correct livelihood. It's one of the eight, out of the Eightfold Path, Noble Eightfold Path is right livelihood, where we don't kill or steal or lie or anything like that. So yeah, you have a difficult situation then, if you are a lawyer or publicist who has to lie. But one way the Buddha helped somebody in this situation, which is quite a famous story in our tradition, a butcher came to Buddha very upset that, you know, Buddha, I have to kill. I'm a butcher. What to do? I have to do that to survive. So then the Buddha said, look, at least do you kill at night? He said, no, I never kill at night, only during the day. Buddha said, good. So every time you finish your day's work, you make the vow, make a strong vow, I'm not going to kill any animal until tomorrow morning. And it was very easy for him to keep that vow because he didn't do that anyway. But he made the vow, I'm not going to kill until tomorrow morning. I'm not going to kill for the next 12 hours or whatever. Keeping that vow, he was then able to create the causes and conditions to stop being a butcher or whatever. It benefited him greatly. Making the vow not to lie. So maybe as a lawyer, sometimes you work late at night with your computer. You're lying even till midnight, but you could say, okay, I'm not going to lie in my dreams. You know, I'm not going to lie once I lie down in bed. I'm not going to lie until tomorrow morning, until I start answering my emails, I'm not going to lie. You could do something like that, or just change your job. And then if you begin starving to death, you'll have to again become a lawyer and a liar. I don't know. You have a question, Joya, please.
Yeah. Am I?
Yes, you just go ahead.
I can speak?
I can hear you.
Long ago, I read, it must have been 30 years ago, a book on a meditator who, it's called The Diary of a Meditator. A woman, I think US woman, she used to be a pilot, and she went to, a foreigner, she went to Thailand in the Wat Baforne village, which all the foreigners go to. And then she describes how she did this, what happened to her, and she became so successful at shamatha meditation that she was sent to Chiang Mai to a nunnery to stay there and practice something else. I don't know if she called it, I forgot if she called it vipassana. And what happens to her is that all the memories of her own life, actually her own life, from being an infant, to all the things that have upset her and annoyed her and made her think bad thoughts all her life, they surface. So paripatti, in the Theravada tradition, they talk of pariyatti, paripatti. At one point, these negative memories surface and they come up like scum. I don't know if Tibetan Buddhism has this simile, that if you do deep concentration samatha, which is always a means to an end, not an end in itself, then these things come up.
Yes.
I don't know if that is taught.
Wallace talks about this very eloquently in one of his books. Yeah.
Who?
Alan Wallace.
Who? Oh.
Wallace talks about it in one of his books on shamatha. Maybe the book on the measurables, where he intersperses that with shamatha. But he talks about that, yeah. Now, at a certain stage of shamatha, a lot of stuff comes up, obviously, because the mind is becoming so refined. Stuff is coming up. Yeah, that's right. Can I help with anything? Huh? Can be, yes. There's a remote there. To your, yeah, right there in front of you. Yeah. Yeah, it's quite cool enough now. Bas, ho gaya. Yeah, that's right, Joy. That's right. And then there are teachings, of course, on how to cope with all this stuff coming up, because it can be very disturbing, he said. And, but yeah, that wouldn't, I think, mitigate the fact that one also needed to do purification practice. Although some might argue the shamatha itself is a kind of purification of the mind, right? But I think Vajrasattva is taught to a lot of people at the beginning, isn't it, as part of the preliminary practices, just to make the mind more suitable for everything that follows, you know. So Vajrasattva, then as you know, the other thing, Guru Yoga, Mandala offering, water bowls, Guru Yoga, all of this, prostrations, part of the preliminary practices, which vary a little between the different traditions. But I think the Guru Yoga, the Mandala offering, the Vajrasattva, they are common to all of the 4 schools of Tibetan Buddhism, aren't they? What's the one I'm missing out that's common to all? Mandala, Guru Yoga, Vajrasattva. What's the others? Anyway, there are these preliminary practices which are performed. Refuge, of course, refuge and bodhicitta. All of these are practiced. Anything else, folks? Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. If someone has done some karma and you want to repent because of that karma and cleanse, how do you know that you were able to cleanse?
That's a good question. How do we know we've cleansed? Well, if one has done, it is said, these longer retreats, meaning the 100,000 bodhisattvas or 100,000 prostrations, then it is said you can have certain dreams can indicate that you've managed to purify a lot. You can dream that you are vomiting out, impurities, or that you are things like bathing, eating yogurt, auspicious dreams, riding on elephants, maybe, things like that. Or, meeting teachers, Buddhas, those kind of things are indicative that purification is happening or has happened. Yeah. Those kind of things can occur in dreams. But it doesn't mean they have to occur in dreams. If one is doing the practice sincerely, according to the instructions of one's teacher, then one can be sure that some purification will be happening. That's just, how it works. But it may not be as simple as seeing that a seed is growing into a plant. One cannot necessarily see it that clearly. But many people have reported that then their meditation becomes easier. Their negative emotions become less powerful, less repetitive, whatever. That they feel lighter in a sense mentally. They feel more relaxed, spacious, and so forth. Of course, that can happen even after just a few days of intense practice or meditation. Or a Vipassana retreat for 10 days, people can feel very good for a while. But the thing is to keep on going until it's obvious that a lot of purification has happened. Because one can feel good very quickly, through certain kinds of practice. But it doesn't mean that it's necessarily very deep purification yet. Of course, one can feel very good after Ayurvedic retreat or, massage retreat in Kerala or something, or a good hot shower when you feel dirty. You can feel very good for an hour or two, but it doesn't mean, again, the next day you have to wash. So it has to be done a lot of times. That's why they say 100,000. And that's why some people get told by their teachers to do it many times, many hundreds of thousands. So that some people have done even up to 1 million prostrations or 1 million bodhisattva mantras and so forth, which is quite feasible over a 10, 15, 20, 25 year span. It's very feasible if you live that long.
Kabir had a question, please. Desiring wealth or
Wealth.
money. Yeah, having desires for having future wealth or money that you probably intend to create by not doing anything unethical or doing in the right way. Is that also considered negative karma?
Depends. If you're just doing it in a greedy way, then it is. Or in another sense, of course, it's not transformative karma. It's like you're creating the cause if you're doing it properly and well, and if you share the benefits to some extent, then you are creating the cause to, as we give the example sometimes, you're creating the cause to be lodged in a better cell in the jail of samsara. You're still in samsara, but you're given a better cell because you behave well, but you're still in jail. So to get out of jail, we need a different kind of karma, which thinks beyond just this life and future life even. It thinks about liberation and dedicates one's practice towards liberation and engages in morality, concentration, wisdom in a very deep way, which are the main causes for liberation or nirvana. And then, of course, to attain Buddhahood, one needs the great compassion, bodhicitta. But yeah, of course, if we do anything in a way that doesn't harm others, and if we add to that, we're doing it so that we really can be of some benefit for other people. For example, wealth, if we sincerely wish to share that wealth, at least to some extent, with other people, to benefit them, then of course that's something good. not necessarily the cause for nirvana, but it's the cause for future happiness for yourself in samsara. So there's nothing wrong with that. We need to have better bodies, stronger bodies, better conditions, so good situations so that we can continue to practice the spiritual path as a human being. So it makes sense to create the causes to have a good human rebirth. But you see, the causes, even just to have a decent, good human rebirth, are not easy. Because even that means there has to be some practice of morality, as I said, good morality, generosity, especially also, and then also to understand the benefits of a human rebirth and to pray for it, to dedicate for it strongly in one's life. That creates the cause for a good human rebirth. Which, let's face it, that's essential to continue our spiritual practice. We can't do it as a dog or a snake or a mosquito or a hungry ghost or a hell being or even a long life God who are totally spaced out, blissed out in the long blissful meditations, but not creating any good karma, just using up good karma, not getting enlightened at all. Yeah.
It's good to earn money so long as you use it for a good cause. Is that a fair statement?
Well, if the point is, if we're just earning money for the sake of it, someone came to me today and said, there's a possibility of getting a new job which pays me better. And I said, how much do you earn now? He said, 1,50,000. Now that for me is a huge amount. Okay, it's all relative, right? So I said, oh, is that enough for you? Yes, and he has friends and other people he likes in his present job. So I was kind of saying, well, it doesn't seem to make so much sense to go for this new job where it's unknown situation, really. You're only getting some more money, not a huge amount more. You're getting more. I mean, why? Why do you need to change jobs just to get a bit more money when what you have is enough? This person is not married. They don't have to look after their parents. So, it's enough what they're earning. So if we are just wanting more money for the sake of it, or just to follow our own, just so we can be happy, then that's just creating more samsara. You're not actively harming others, you could say. You're not killing, stealing, engaging in sexual misconduct. You may never use harsh speech, never lie, in fact, never try to divide people with your speech. You may never, or very rarely, engage in idle gossip, not have harmful thoughts, not have great greed or covetousness. But if you're basically only using it for yourself, thank you, thanks a lot, bye. Maybe see you on the, whatever, a bit later, on the 1st, if you come. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, bye. But if you're just using it for your own purpose, that's not very great, Even if you're not doing any of the other vastly negative karmas, but you're not really thinking of others. You just want to, it's nice to have that feeling of being wealthy and having a big fat account or whatever. Then that's just more samsara. It's just creating the cause for the same kind of attitude in the future. You're someone who wants to have more money and not particularly want to share it. It's not like you're stealing from others, but you wouldn't go out of your way to share it. Then that's just more karma to have an ordinary self-centered life, which is nowhere near, fulfilling our human potential, which is to be of great benefit to others. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Mm. Okay, good. We'll dedicate. Do read the text. It's fascinating, very well written in Venerable Robina's very powerful, direct style. So let's dedicate that we understand more and more these teachings on purification, on karma, on the non-materiality of the mind, on the importance of working with our mind, purifying the mind with the 4 opponent powers as much as we can, skillfully, so that then we can create the sort of mind that is of incredible benefit to vast numbers of people, including oneself. Obviously, the byproduct is we ourselves benefit. Whether we want to or not, we will benefit. So may that happen. May we never be separated from such teachings. May we never be separated from holy, wise teachers, authentic teachers. And may we especially create the cause for Lama Zopa Rinpoche to quickly return and guide us in a new body, young body, and be of tremendous benefit to the Dharma and sentient beings as he was in his previous life, in the life just lived. So may that all happen as a result of our good wishes, our positive energy. So thank you all very much, wherever you are. Nivita in America, Joyaji in Chirag Enclave, and the rest of you in all sorts of places, which I don't know, but probably not too far away. Somewhere on the planet. None of you look, I hope, are AI. If you are, then may AI also benefit. Get some good ideas. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, that's it, folks. Enough for today. I have to order my egg chow mein for tonight, and off to Nepal tomorrow, where we'll do many prayers for Lama Zopa Rinpoche on day after tomorrow, 49-day puja. That will be, I guess, in the morning, day after tomorrow, at Courtin Monastery in Nepal. And of course, that is similar practices are being done all over the world. So if Tushita students can do also something on that day, it's good. Yeah. Okay. Thank you all very much. Good night.